Hello, hello, hello out there in the Betaverse. My name is Ryan Erickson. I am a contributing artist with Red 42, founder and principal of Purple Phoenix Partners, which is my venture. And today, here on BetaCodex Live, I usually say good now, and I think today this is a very appropriate topic to say good now for. It is the now of work. We hear a lot about the future of work. Now we're going to talk today about the now of work. And who am I going to be talking with? The mystery guest. That is not necessarily a mystery. Mr. Niels Flagging. Hello, Niels.
Hello, Ryan. Good to be with you in the new year, 2024.
Yes, good to be here. And what might be brought to us in fortuitousness in this year of 2024? Who knows? So now the topic of today is now, the now of work.
I think that's why we picked this topic a little bit, because it's the change of the year, a new year starting, so that makes time perceivable, right?
Yeah, it's time focused, and we'll get into what that means for beta a little bit later. The now, and that a lot of times what happens, when people come into the new year, there's all these plans, right? These plans and goals, and might I say fixed targets for what we want to achieve, and the OKRs and all that kind of stuff that people are starting to do for themselves now. But what we talk about a lot here is presence and being in the now, and responding to what is and what is here. And because when we try and predict the future, how often we as human beings, how often do we end up being right about that, being disappointed? And what better experience to be responding to and receiving what is here today, in life in general. And obviously we'll take this into work, but why wait for the future when a person, people, teams, organizations can improve their conditions now with the tools that are available now that we know about? So that is the theme, being in the now. And what does that mean for work, our work in organizations? So,
by the way, can I interrupt just to add something to that? I think that was a beautiful starting point that you offered. And in the last episode, we talked about experimentation and why it sucks. And I think this is quite kind of connected as well. I think those two themes, that experimentation and organizational development doesn't function, doesn't work. And I think one might say, relating that to today's theme, experimentation is an enemy of now. Experimentation is very much about doing things in the future. Now we just experiment. We do not take it that seriously. We are not doing it right away. Right away is now, but experimenting puts the bettering, the betterness, the better future firmly into the future, and not into the now. We want to flip the present, ideally, right? And just for those who may have not seen the last episode, the previous one about experimentation in organizational development is very related in a way to that question. Why aren't we doing it full-fledged, full Monty now, right away, with all the willing, together now, all together now?
A Beatles reference, right?
And an OK Go song. Do you know OK Go, Ryan? Did we
Yes.
That's a beautiful song by OK Go, all together now. It's wonderful. They did it collaboratively with hundreds of people around the world, actually, and video recorded. It's fantastic.
Oh my gosh. So now you're going to derail me, but so going back to the topic of today, the now.
Yes.
Another part of this was saying, why mess around with flimsy experiments?
Yes.
Right. That again, we talk about experimentation. We were talking last week about being grounded in theory, and to be committed to a theory. I think we can talk a little bit about the semantics between when you are engaging in something based on theory. That's kind of an experiment, in the scientific method. Again, but we talked about that last week. Yes. What I received from what you just said was the idea of practice and being a professional in practice, and getting better continually at what you do in the moment based on what is here and what you sense. Again, not necessarily a plan, but what is calling to you. Why am I getting better? Who am I with? And what are we doing now? Connectedness with purpose, right? And what are we doing? Why are we doing it? And let's be in practice together, right?
Yes.
And in the now of work, to be creating better conditions, creating superior results to folks who would say, all right, let's spend the time planning, let's spend the time budgeting, let's say target, blah, blah, blah. And then when you, as compared to having a small team of people who are in practice with their capacities, multifaceted capacities, and creating value now, and just creating value now. So I mean, that's what excites me about that.
Yeah, I mean, value creation is in the here and now. That's not so hard, I think, to understand, right? That value creation must happen in the here and now. We cannot eat carrot that isn't created or available in the here and now. But with
we can eat dirt.
We are forever stalled, it seems. I mean, 2 episodes ago, we talked with Paul Torczynski, who has been working in the field for 40 years or something more. Today, I read an article by Marilyn Emery, Australian social researcher. She was married to Fred Emery, one of the preeminent social researchers. We talked with Paul Torczynski, we talked about Eric Trist, his connection to Eric Trist. Now, Eric Trist and Fred Emery, they were this duo, this brilliant duo of the social technical systems movement. And Marilyn Emery, I think she's not getting enough credit, was the wife and co-researcher of Fred Emery. So let's say the 3, I think, are the dominant figures of the social technical system movement. And Marilyn Emery is still alive. She is 83, 84 years old or something. And I also always, when I look at the work of people like her, Marilyn Emery in this case, and she's still publishing on a website, still releasing articles which are very scientific, actually. I wonder, okay, how must she perceive this fact that things haven't really changed substantially? We are still in a world of command and control. They call it, I think, DS1. What we call alpha, they call it DS1, and what we call beta, they call it DS2. And the world is still dominated by DS1. They came up, I think, with this distinction between alpha and beta in a way. Command and control, DS1. Decentralized, democratic is DS2. So for decades, 4 decades, 5 decades, 6 decades since the age of Kurt Lewin, we've known so much, but we have advanced so little. I mean, occasionally we have advanced, but then the cases fall back. Marilyn Emery has experienced this experience and written about this as well. Yeah, so how not to lose hope if we always wait for a future that may never arrive until we do the work that should be done. And we have talked about this in our BetaCodex live sessions occasionally, or often even, that there is an ethical case to be made. I mean, nobody deserves command and control. Nobody deserves organizational Stalinism. So why wait for the future until we act? It's really a pretty condemning insight, I think, to say, okay, there are millions of organizations out there, so few of them are beta. What the fuck are the others doing? Right?
Maybe
how are the organizational developers or change agents and consultants doing? They're just perpetuating the shit. We've talked about you have to pick this theme up.
Well, true, and this is, again, this leads into a couple things about culture change, and having someone responsible for culture change and planning culture change. How ridiculous is that?
Yes, but let's turn it around. Very interesting point, I think, Ryan. But let's turn it around. There's always sense in the nonsense. And of course, it's totally nonsensical to have a culture. It's like having a quality manager, or to have a culture, or org development professionals. All that is ludicrous in a way, right? But there is meaning in the nonsense, in the insanity, right? So what's the meaning? The meaning is we are dabbling with these ideas. We kind of want to fake that we are already there. I get this a lot from my clients. Oh, we already have this. We have these teams. And I tell them, no. If you had these teams, they would be dominant. You wouldn't have all those other structures that we are, the matrix structures, the silos, the business units, and all the committees that you have. You wouldn't have them if you had this. You wouldn't have the other overstructure, the apparatus of steering and so on, and command and control. So you do not have this. You're fooling yourselves that you have this. Yeah, you're fooling yourselves that you have self-organization and decentralization. And interesting that we institutionalize all these things like culture, head of culture. What these things exist? They are ludicrous, right? In a way, but it's not fair to laugh about people who hold these positions or have installed them. We should wonder why the fuck do those things, right?
And it's about again, this is a bigger thing about the underlying assumption that alpha is the only way we can do it. We must control, and that if we want to enact change, if we want to embody change in a future, right, then we must plan the change, and that and we have to tell people how to change, and we have to give the workers, the doers, instead we thinkers must give them the idea what is to change. Here's how you behave. Here, thus are the corporate values. Thus are the values we must share, and as opposed to having the values of individuals clash and create and make a culture of affiliation and process for that team. And yes, the people who have attained positions of authority in alpha cultures, you're not talking about bad people. We're talking about well, and again, there's the assholes. There are assholes out there.
Yes, we're not assuming. We're never assuming in our conversations here and in our work in the BetaCodex that people are the problem, right? We always assume that people are brilliant adapters. They adapt brilliantly
and that's
command and control cages. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, and also I think again coming back to the theory of now is saying, well, what is the system that is in place in this organization now? And not what we think it is or what we intend it to be. What is here now, and why is it here now, and what can we do about it now with the people we have, as opposed to calling in McCenture, Deloitte, EY, whoever to tell us what to do. And this.
But certainly, too, several assumptions that you just mentioned are producing this stuckness. As first, it's a lack of belief in human nature. It's not a wrong belief in human nature. It's really a lack of belief in actual human nature. Theory X is a lack of belief, not a wrong belief in a way. So Theory X, human nature assumptions are a problem. And then the assumption that you also already mentioned, it's that change takes a long time. I mean, that's why one of our white papers is called From Now to New Right Here.
Yeah.
Now and the new can be in the same moment. Right here, if we flip a system, if we change the conditions, even our social interactions can change the now to new right here. And this insight that change is immediate and that it will ripple through time in a way, but that it can be produced right here, right now, in the today, that it doesn't take a long time. It doesn't take many years, which is the crime, the Hamel crime that we discussed in another episode recently.
Well, I got to commit. The other metaphor that you bring in terms of now to new is the pouring milk into coffee.
Yes.
Right. And once you pour that milk into coffee, you can't unpour it. Yes. Right. And how silly is it to, even if you pour like a little piece of creamer in there, it changes the coffee. You can't undo that. You can't just plan.
And you will also have, in the moment you pour, you do not have the total result, but the total result is inevitable in a way, or almost inevitable, because the moment you pour the milk into the coffee, you know that there will be mixing, right? Diffusion. Not sure what physically is the right term, but you will have a mixture between milk and coffee. That isn't happening then. It will take time. depending on certain factors until that happens. But you know it will happen. It's inevitable. So the trigger point, the intervention in the here and now also determines what can happen afterwards. And that is, of course, we know that from certain systems. We know this from revolutions or crucial insights that found that time and that had very
well the revolution again. Maybe this is not back in the point of the coffee thing. That the change that when you flip a system, a social system, right? What you're changing the conversations, you're changing the influence dynamics, you're changing thought patterns, you're changing narratives. All those things, those cannot be effectively contained. People are going to talk about what they are doing. People are going to talk about what they're doing with people who are peers, colleagues, people who are in positions of authority for whatever reason in alpha. That the milk is going to keep swirling, right?
Yes.
And that so and anyway, I mean, that's it. Just seems once you see the truth of that, then it becomes maybe not easier, but clearer to say what kind of structure will allow that influence network to build, will seed that knowledge of what it means. What is a cell? How does a cell structure? How does that work? Well, this works this way for our business. Well, who are the 7 people that we think in this area for this market make that happen? And what are the so that's, and when people start talking about that, if they have either A, discomfort with it or a lack of understanding of it, or B, they get it, that's the milk is going to be swirling, and then that change is going to happen. But that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen effectively when you pour a little piece of creamer in it at every cup of coffee every 2 weeks, and expect that, oh, let's measure the amount of milk, let's measure the brownness of the coffee at that point. Well, no, because it's the now is continuous. It is always happening.
By the way, you just brought something to my mind that when you talked about the power of conversations changing the present and the future, Ernst Weichselbaum, our Austrian colleague with whom I wrote this book in German about the so-called Weichselbaum system, he says that every conversation is a nowness. He uses this term, Jetztheit, a nowness in which we can change, not just influence, but change the future in a way and put the future on certain tracks. Of course, not in a determined way, but a nowness. Every encounter, every conversation like ours here is a nowness that opens pathways for future developments. And in a way, of course, a community like the BetaCodex network wants to produce this kind of nowness all the time. This opportunity for us to influence the presence and not derail it into perpetuating command and control and the stifling nature of power over instead of power with, as Mary Parker put it. So every conversation is an opportunity to create a better present and a better future. And maybe we should talk a little bit about what that means for beta and for self-structure design and open space beta as well.
Well, again, I kind of went a little bit early in terms of preparation versus planning.
Yes.
What we're preparing ourselves in practice, what we prepare in the now with disciplined practice so that we can respond. That's beta versus the alpha planning. The team autonomy, connectedness, purpose, knowing what the purpose is, and bonding it with control because of that presence. Decision-making authority, that again, I think we talked about decisions a while ago about, I forget the way you said it, but I really liked it about, there aren't really decisions, or decisions don't matter in some way.
They are mostly irrelevant. Agreements are much more potent, right?
Okay.
Because agreements assume this encounter, while decisions often presuppose hierarchy. I can decide others.
oh, I have 5 or 6 key decisions that must be made before we
Exactly.
can move forward.
Exactly.
Okay, so there's that. Also, the idea of consultative relationships. This whole power in as colleagues, that that progress that happens as a result of intimate, powerful, heartfelt, passionate, and often conflicted, dissenting conversations, that happens in the now. And that, and again, this is another thing that comes into that, the whole consultative and collegial relationship, is why on earth do we meet together in real time unless we want change to happen, unless there's a desire for that. In other, so there's, and again, you can certainly push back on that. That I heard that just hit me, that when we call people together, we are calling people together because all of our time is valuable, real time interaction. We're calling people together for a reason. And if you're going to sit there and be passive and not give a shit, then why be there? This is open space and the law of mobility. You know, if you're not giving or receiving actively, get out.
Yes.
And if all the other these other, in many cases, I would say the details of agreements and just the tactics of work can happen asynchronously. You know, and that you have deep work to let's say I craft what my vision of is of agreement, why I think you craft a vision of an agreement, and then okay, we need to come together to say, you and I, if we're making an agreement, to mash through it and make something better than either of us would have. So that, to me, that's a very beta way of looking at it, as opposed to, I'm going to come into a room and I'm going to announce to everyone what the change shall be, and these are the agreements that you shall respond to and comply with, or else we will commit sanctions against you from our HR organization. So
Yes.
got
It's interesting that we have come to perceive corporate meetings as gatherings that serve perpetuation and stalling, let's say, keeping things as they are, and not, you put that beautifully. Every meeting you should expect, when you join a meeting, you should expect change to happen.
Yeah.
The how or the why can be discussed, but you should expect that you want to change something. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to have a meeting. Really,
Yeah.
it just didn't work, you know.
Well, and this is open space beta.
Framing.
Bringing this into the what we endeavored to do with Red 42 is the open space beta is this again, utilizing open space technology is this perfect way to engage people's passion, responsibility, and that kind of real time. We are here now today to do this, and then we were going to go forward with the people who are willing and who care, and that's, and that taking that energy. And I think we talked about the tension of that there's and we have the time box, right? We got a day, planning day, 90 days, and then we have you know our closure.
And I cannot over accentuate that the idea, the notion of time boxing change, that is something that really only came for us in 2018, and we didn't have it before that. Strangely enough, with hindsight, I cannot explain why we didn't get to that idea before, because before we always said, yeah, we must accelerate change, but we didn't come to the conclusion that the acceleration requires time boxing everything in organizational development. And with hindsight, I must say I was an idiot. I mean, we were all
ignorant. Ignorance is not such a bad thing, because that just means we don't know.
It was terrible. I can tell you, it was terrible. Because I just visited Vienna, and in Vienna, I maybe had my most extended, prolonged consulting assignment 10 years back or so, with a company, a bank, a large bank, really large client, and it took me a year to ramp up the initiative at the time. And when we had the kickoff, my client was fired from the bank. The sponsor, so to speak, was fired from the bank. So it took took a year to get there with rebooting the guiding coalition, as we call it at the time, and everything started to work, and we did a great open space with all the managers in the let's say the business unit and so hundreds of managers in a room. We did a great open space, and a week before the open space, the sponsor was fired. So everything, and as I learned then a week later, everything collapsed because the new top manager just didn't like me.
Well,
he had a crisis, maybe. I don't know. No.
Well, but that's, I mean, you're speaking to that, and again, in the world of so-called agile transformation, that often happens because the typical lifespan of a CEO, typical, or a high-level executive is what, 2-3 years, kind of. I don't know the number, so I don't want to go down, but relatively shorter than what the time of an agile transformation has typically taken. So again, what you experience with the sponsor leave, that is not uncommon. And I think that's one of the, I would say, as a selling point, again, of Open Space Beta, is if you are a sponsor, you can invoke and embody, you can affect real change within a 6-month window, and then you can accelerate from there. Right.
I mean, we currently have a sponsor. We work with a sponsor and do open space database transformation with the client. And with that sponsor, we asked her, look, do you intend to be here in 6 months? Because if you don't, we shouldn't even start. Second question, are you willing not to take any major vacation in that 90 days? Time span, at least, even before it's about 5 months. If you look at the open space beta timeline, requires about 5 months that you cannot take major vacations, not even a week really of vacation. So we also asked her, are you willing to do that, to postpone? And she said, yeah, I already arranged it, everything with family and so on. So these are you are right. I mean, of course, we can never guarantee that a sponsor is not whatever. There can be made. There can be events out of anybody's influence. But
you can't predict the future, can you?
Exactly.
Really.
But the longer a transformation drags on, the larger the likelihood is that you will lose your sponsor. And so that's one of the things that we took from the Vienna experience 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That it was taking too long. You cannot do that. You cannot sustain high energy, sufficient levels of energy and engagement. And so if the thing drags on for a year and a half, 2 years, it just doesn't work that way. You can do the Maxentia. How did you call it before? The Maxentia. Dragging on forever because nobody expects anything to move.
Because that's again. I think this what I was thinking too when we were talking about this time box change. This goes back to the principles I think that are developing, or that we may want to articulate in a white paper going on. The principles of beta consulting. We talked about that. This whole the idea of the time box and the energy, and the oh gosh, I'm trying to think that, like, the half-life. What is the half-life of this energy that happens? Over a year.
Change work, yes, it change work.
The change work. The other thing that when we talked about time boxing, I had to bring in because it connects to the Newton's the law of there's a law, I forget, some thermodynamics.
Thermodynamics.
Exactly. There you go. Org physics, right? That creates that energy when you bound the system. That if you have flabby boundaries, then the energy is going to dissipate more quickly. Entropy.
I watched a documentary yesterday about entropy, and it wasn't positive, let's say, because it's very likely that entropy will lead to a cool disengage, and life will end at a certain point in billions of years. So it's not that mystic in a way. But then again, the theoretical scientist they were interviewing, she said, well, there's also a hypothesis that a vacuum effect can happen at any time and everything ends immediately. It can happen any time. I thought that
So
would be
how can you watch that and still?
it was like, how do you live with that? How do we?
Oh,
How? I didn't want to know that shit. But she said she wouldn't sense it. If that vacuum thingy happens, we should look up the term because a vacuum effect or something like that. It would happen. She said it will happen throughout the universe with the speed of light, and we will not see it coming. Brilliant, brilliant, right?
So make use of the now. So make use of the now.
We are talking here under the assumption that life will not end just like that, and that the end of life is likely only to happen in a few billion years, so that we can do a lot of stuff and have a lot of fun together until then. Yeah, in the now.
in the now. So again, now, and I want to bring us a little bit back into what does the now mean? The now of work with Beta.
Yeah. Can I continue to talk about old people?
Okay.
We were talking about Paul and Marilyn Emery in Australia, and I feel old as well.
Oh, okay. Yes.
I feel old as well. I include myself in that. We are all old. Everybody, you're 50 years old as well?
52. I think we're
so that's old.
Gen X.
So let's talk about old people. And
okay.
and I really wonder why we are wasting our time. You know, when, for example, when we have talked about that as well in past episodes here, when Frederic Laloux's book was published and became such a bestseller in Germany, it became an even bigger bestseller than anywhere else. I thought, okay, now people will pick it up, right? They will. Some will want to act. Some will want to act. Some will just keep dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
That reminds me of a Paul McCartney, Michael Jackson song. But you keep on dreaming. But some will act, I thought, and everything got worse. Isn't that interesting? So I think the hesitation has gone up even with all the dreaming about better teal, rosy posy, hunky dory, whatever.
Yes,
a strange new world out there, great possibilities, wonderful possibilities, but still we are still not acting in the here and now. We are still not convinced that we have to work here, work our asses off in the here and now in a way to deserve a better future, of organization work. So in a way, it's kind of, it bothers me that we are not advancing. We are still not convincing. We're not talking. Maybe we're not talking enough to senior managers. I mean everyone.
Consultants,
in the field, consultants. Yes, I include everybody. Maybe we are not talking in the right way about the right things. Maybe we are not talking to the right people. Maybe we are not talking with conviction. Maybe we're not talking from the heart. Maybe we're not. We're not talking about the benefits, but explaining techniques. And surely we are. Masturbating on techniques and tools all the time. That's all these. I think all this is part of the problem, right?
So again, I want to go in there. I want to get in there just a little bit. So we're talking about the conversations are the organization and the influence and all that kind of stuff. But talk is cheap. Talk is cheap. That actually doing the work. So talk about the work, and there's a big criticism of Agile. So, we're going to meet to talk about the work so we can talk about the work again instead of doing the work.
Today I got an invitation by a guy who asked me, Niels, you will be in that city in Switzerland. What about us having a coffee? And I did not answer yet, but I will answer something like, I'm not in the coffee business. Talk is not that cheap. I mean, talk is, why have a coffee? Let's do the fucking work, dude. If you want to, if you want to collaborate. So no, let's not have coffees. We have had so many coffees. I mean, I can have coffee with my family or friends, but among peers, we should talk topics and problems and solutions and project and action, and not, do you have time for a coffee? Yes and no. Right? What do you say? It's like open space is not a coffee drinking thing. You can drink a coffee at an open space, but that's not what it's for.
Well, there's a conflation of like open spaces like a big coffee break. But the reason that Harrison said that was because the coffee breaks were when people actually got together to talk about the real stuff they wanted to talk about.
Yes.
So
that they cannot talk about during the presentations,
right,
during the slideshows and so on. Yeah.
because
So
someone's sitting up on the
before
stage.
the idea.
Here's my plan for the future. Here's blah blah blah. This is my theory of everything for the organization. Bop bop bop. Spend an hour in there, and then you get up like, I don't care. And then you get into the coffee break, and you're talking about, well, this guy said this, this guy said that, but no, I think something else. I think this. I don't. This is bullshit. We should be taught. We shouldn't even have. That's the coffee break end of it.
Yeah.
But what is that?
That's the idea. Let's get real.
Let's get real, or the great book. I think let's get real, or let's not play. I think that's a good book.
Yeah.
Oh wow! So the coffee break again. Also, if you are looking for work, that's something. And there are a lot of people out there looking for work. So there's a balance between how many coffees are you going to have before you start talking about, hey, here's what I can do. Here's how I can serve others.
Yes, exactly.
And here's what
and then we can have a coffee while talking about that. I'm not against the coffee thing. Don't get me wrong, right?
Well, but no, you said it in the way that's great. It has to be something to it, because our time and I say oftentimes at the end of whatever meeting I'm at and sharing, thank you for the precious gift of your time and attention, because that is the most valuable commodity that we have as human beings, is to give our attention to someone in the now, in this now, because this is the only time you and I will be having this conversation for the first time is the now. And then maybe someone watches it in the future, and that now for them will come up for them in the only time that it could ever come up, and change them in the only way that it could happen. So, yes, I am a fervent supporter of coffee, as you well know. But
by the way, are you wearing the Who T-shirt?
Yes, I am. The Maximum R&B shirt.
I only noticed now. Okay, I never quite connected to the Who, even though they had a great bassist, right? Peter Entwistle,
John Entwistle, Pete Townsend, Roger Daltrey, Keith
Moon. Oh, Pete Townsend! I love Pete Townsend. John Entwistle, I never could connect to the Who's songs. I think I'm not sure why. I'm incompetent with regard.
Well, I mean, everyone in musical taste. This is every individual has unique musical taste. Because I'm a bass player, Entwistle, they called him Thunder Fingers, because he was again not the greatest note guy, but he was great for the band, and that band together made the only music that they could make. And I will share with you. It's a great video of the sheer energy of the Who. They had a different energy than the Beatles. So the Beatles and the Stones were this kind of corporate thing, but they had that appeal. But I don't know, just for me, because I'm a bass player, the first bass solo I ever heard was the My Generation bass solo from again.
Talking about My Generation, is that the song?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the
I have to listen to this song again. That's interesting. Yes. I wasn't aware that you were into the Who as well. Okay.
Oh,
maybe I have to give them a chance. I'm a big fan of that Pete Townsend solo album, City Black.
But I know the one with Give Blood on it.
Give Blood. Exactly.
Oh, great tune. Oh, Pino Palladino. Huh? Pino Palladino playing bass on that album.
He does? Okay. Okay.
Oh, that tune is phenomenal.
That's the here and now. No, I wanted to talk about the here and now of the beta specific things, maybe.
Yeah.
Because I started talking about old people. At the time when I joined the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable, I thought that the action was missing. The research, the theory was good, very good even, I thought. But where's the action? Nobody's doing anything. The Beyond Budgeting Roundtable members and the directors, we were talking a lot within the community and so on, but nothing was happening. Everything was stalled. Yeah. Then, of course, Robin Fraser pushed ahead with, working with clients. And just like that, he had a client in Italy, a company in Italy, a couple of hundred people, and did transformation with them. So those, I thought, were the moments of action. And then I noticed that the community wasn't behind that at all. The community didn't want the action. It didn't want to act in the here and now. It wanted to other things, maybe entertainment. I'm not sure how to call it.
Well, there's thought leadership, academic credential.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's
other people, accelerate your career. Don't do some professional networking. That was also one of the purposes, and actually good, in the light of luminaries of the field. And we certainly had luminaries of the field. I mean, all within our team of directors, I think we had very, very bright people. We invited great guests and great case speakers. So there was this element. Yeah. But that's not the same as action, I think.
No.
Well,
because, and again, this maybe this is a question for you about the history of the roundtable. There was observation of certain organizations that had these patterns, right?
Yes.
That exemplify,
Handelsbanken,
Gore, Statoil, maybe. I think that was, maybe there was.
Yes, first Borealis. The case was Borealis, and then Borealis became a part of Statoil. Yes. And Rhodia in France, and Schneider Electric in France was also a case. Even IKEA was a case, even though it was never published.
And Toyota and AES, and that again, the genesis of the roundtable, again, totally, you were there, I wasn't, but the way I received it is that it was observation of those cases, and that what is the aggregation of those patterns, and how might we articulate those in such a way that organizations will actually adopt them, right?
Yes.
But articulating them, putting them in a book and putting them out there is entirely different from how might we, again, that design question, make this work, make it real, bring it from this ether into the now. So
yes, and I think, to be fair, in the first 5 to 8 years of the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable, the work was focused on understanding the model and articulating that and sharing that and producing articles and books and papers and so on, and sharing with the community, understanding the cases, understanding the patterns. So that was a lot of work, right? The only problem is that then, once the model was thoroughly understood because BRBIT was founded in 98, 99, 2003, around 2003 or 2002, the model was clear. Then the first book, Beyond Budgeting, and my first book on Beyond Budgeting as well, they were published in 2003. So after this, let's say, the learning curve flattened off. Yeah, because we had a good understanding of the model. We had enough cases. So every other case, every additional case, like the Toyota case, we only found out about it very late. Or DM Drogeriemarkt, fantastic case, but it only added so much insight. So the learning curve, it flattened off. The next step of learning would have been to understand, okay, how does transformation work to that model? Okay, now we understand the model, now let's understand transformation. And to understand that, we would have gotten again into theory building cases, because Handelsbanken was a case like that. DM Drogeriemarkt had transformed in the 1990s. Toyota transformation was way back in the 1950s, 60s. Very, very hard to research, but Handelsbanken had transformed in the 1970s, and there were still people around who knew about it. Likewise, Semco, DM, and so on. So there were these transforming companies, and we could have researched those principles, but we didn't, because we wanted to be the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable. We wanted to be a community talking about the model, not about the change, because some of us didn't feel, comfortable maybe with the topic for organizational development.
You were tool heads back in those days, right?
No, I wouldn't condemn my former colleagues in that way. Maybe not too much, but certainly people inclined to the financial and performance management aspects of the model, and not OD experts like Paul Torczynski, for example, who we interviewed 2 episodes ago. So the doses of people, or the let's see, the interest among the research directors in the BBRT in researching change and organizational development was too low. Robin Fraser had that interest, I had that interest, and Peter Bunce, Jeremy Hope, Steve Player, and the others, even Beate Boxness, who's still around, they didn't have much interest in that change stuff. Yeah, they still like to talk about their experience in change, but not the, to be so analytical about it. And Robin Fraser and I, we thought we have to be leading in the field of OD, in the field of change, in the field of transformation. We have to be at the forefront, because John Cotter and so on, who was back then in the 2000s, maybe the leading figure of change expertise, internationally at least. There were other great people, of course, like Paul Tolchinsky, Bill Passmore, and so on. But maybe the most famous figure, most celebrated figure was John Cotter, and even his method, we knew it back then, it wasn't enough. We needed more, So we added to it and tried to make this more, action-oriented. That was simply the quest at the time, transformation-oriented, become transformation-oriented and action-oriented and act in here. Now, instead of be a talk shop,
Yeah. Well, and you can't take action in the future.
Yeah, and today the agile movement and the lean movement, I think they have become talk shops as well. They're not very action-oriented, not at all. They are maybe tool-oriented, qualification-oriented, but not action-oriented. So that's the call. In the here and now, let's act. Let's transform. Make the world a better place. Now, nothing is missing. When I came to the studio today, I thought, okay, 20 years ago, what did we have to convince people? Not to convince people, but to get people to understand beta or transformation. We had very little material. There was all this literature out there from social technical systems and so on, but now we have so much more. We have our own cases, our own papers, our own theories, concepts. We even have a learning platform. With Comenius, we have a learning platform that people can use. We have a transformation approach that works, and that's well documented. So there's no reason to wait anymore. 2024, it's the year.
It's the year for beta.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Let's give it a ride.
Let's do it now. Do it now. Excellent. I think we've reached a nice point where we can land this ship today.
Let's
bring it into port and bring more joy into the world, as our loving W. Edwards Deming would say, the joy in work. Right?
Yes. Let's join now. I think that could be the conclusion. Joy.
Why extend the human suffering? Okay, so that's a little. It's hyperbolic, maybe.
But that's a good point. Of course, we cannot end all human suffering at once, but the human suffering at work, we can eliminate 80-90% of it safely by moving to beta organizations. I'm convinced of that. We don't have to agree, but I'm convinced of that. Much of the human suffering at work is
because of the system,
by command control systems. So entirely unnecessary.
Wow.
Good.
Excellent conversation.
Final words that you want to speak.
Final words. Don't wait. It is your turn. Do it now.
Perfect.
All right.
Do it now. Let's do it. Let's wrap this. Thank you for attending. See you next week.
You got it.